Welcome to Telco Bridge's ProSBC TechTraining Module 205, covering one of the most powerful features of ProSBC, call routing. Like a Class 4 switch, ProSBC could route calls to destinations based on many different call criteria. So let's learn more.
So, call routing. I would say it is not necessarily the focus of the system. However, we add some functionalities now and then. I know some customers have asked for very much larger routing schemes, but it's not really our focus, right? So we're presenting a lot of opportunities to do that. To do the different types of routings, and we offer routing scripts, which allows you to modify rules, change behavior of the routing. But we are not, it's not in our short-term plan to develop a larger routing scheme, okay? So I will present what we have now, just a routing overview of what you can do with the system. So we have some internal routing, then you can add some routing scripts to this internal routing. We have some examples of routing, like routing scripts like label routing that you can use. These are off-the-shelf scripts. Then you can have tools to test these routes. We have also enabled radius routing. So you can route the calls asking an external radius server. And similar for SIP redirect, so we can send a SIP call to some redirect servers, and then they can return us information on routing or other information, and then we can route the calls according to this information. Right? So if I show you a global overview of this, mainly you get some incoming calls in the SBC, and there will be some outgoing calls. These outgoing calls are either just one destination or a list of destinations. Right? And then we can try the first destination. If that one fails or if it's not available, we'll try another destination in order. Okay? So the incoming is just one call, and then the outgoing can be up to 8 different possibilities. Inside the SBC here, we have the routing scripts. Even for the basic routing table, it still goes through our routing scripts, but it's a very simple script, let's say. Okay? And then you can choose what to do in a routing script. Either it's our static routing table that you have in the web portal configuration. So then you send this incoming call information to this static routing table. And this returns a list of possible routes. And then it goes out to the SBC and tries to reach those destinations. Right? So you can have multiple choices in this table. We can... The basic table has called calling. We can filter on the called calling information, and then you can remap the call and calling number. Okay. So this is always available to everyone. Then you can, here in the routing scripts, you can add more functionalities. Right? So you can modify the routing scripts so that it can do other functions either before going to internal routing or bypass completely this routing table. Right? So you can do your own routing here in the system. We added radius. Right? So what we can do here is when we receive a call, we can decide to make a radius request that is sent out of the SBC to an external radius server. when the radio server receives this request, it needs to decode what the SBC has sent, and then it will return a response. Morning. So,
I was here at 8 o'clock.
Oh, you're
I
serious?
said, I'm going to go for breakfast. Man. It took an hour to get.
Took too long.
Sorry.
That's fine. It's the second slide, so that's fine. So the radius response here can be, we accept the request, we refuse the request, or it could be also a timeout. Right? So if there's no answer, then there will be a timeout here in the system. The radius request that we send, in the routing scripts here, we need to fill up the information. So we need to discuss with the radius server and decide which parameters we need to send in what format. And the same thing when we receive the response here, we need to describe how the response will be received and what we need to do with this response. Okay? So most likely, when we integrate a radius server, we need to do at least a little bit of work in the routing scripts to do some routing. Okay? Here we have a SIP redirect server. This is actually a SIP call that is sent. So we can configure here the system to say, well, for these types of calls, send to a SIP redirect server. Once the call is sent there, there's some processing that is done here. This is not something from Telco Bridges, right? These are outside partners. And they return a SIP 300 something response. Could be 300, 102, SIP 300 response. And it has a list of contacts here. This list of contact either, well, let's say our default redirect script, we will try to call each of those contacts in order on outgoing calls here. But this list of contacts could be also more advanced information. And then here in the routing script, we can go look at the list of contact, decode the information, and then do outgoing calls according to the information that is received. Right? So I'm going to show each one of these types of routing. Okay, so the routing table looks like this. You probably saw it already. You have incoming attributes. So these are things that are received from the incoming call. So you have the call number, calling number, and the network access point. All right, so that access point, we saw that yesterday. So it can be just a single source. It can be an open NAP. It could be a restricted NAP. All right, so we can have here. But let's say the default here in this example, it's just a single IP. So we can only receive call from a single IP. Okay. Here in the table, you can then, for the outgoing call, modify the information. So you can modify the call number. You can also modify the calling number, but we don't present it in this table because it's not used so much. But you can still modify the calling number. And then you have the destination where you will send this call. There are custom attributes. These ones actually now are always there on new systems. So you always have priority and wait defined in the routes. But you can have more custom attributes. And it's easy to add custom attributes and use them in the routing scripts. Okay, so these are all kinds of examples which I will show you here. Okay, so the information that you put in the call number here will filter any calls that you receive. It can be either a full number, complete number. It can be oops, there was a little error here. It can be empty like this, so that means it's going to match everything. Or you can have a regular expression and will dynamically match numbers. So for example, this regular expression will match a number that starts with 771. So this will match only this number, this will match 771, this will match everything. All right? It needs to come from this snap though. All right? So it needs to come from this snap with this number. You can have also, it's not empty actually, I forgot to change this, it's any, right? Any. So when you put any, then you can have any nap will match. If any nap matches this number, then it will be accepted. Right? So you have either a specific nap or any nap. So then you have the outgoing attributes. Okay, so the remap called and remap nap. So you can remap the called and calling number. If you keep it empty, then it's gonna keep what you got from the incoming call. If you put a specific number, 781, it's gonna remap the number to 781 in this case. And you can have a post routing translation like this to replace the number. In this case, it's going to remove the 771. Okay. In the case of the remap nap, you either always have to put a specific nap, or when you're using registration, as we saw yesterday, you can set by registered user. So that's another option. If the user is registered, then it can be routed back to this registered phone. I can come back to that later. Okay, so an example here, I have the SBC, I have one nap coming in and 3 naps that can be mapped. So for example, if I receive a call with these numbers like this, then we have to see where it's going to match. Alright, so in this case, it's going to match this one. So we're going to check the calling number, and then the remapped, or the outgoing, as doesn't replace the calling, doesn't replace the call, but will send to nap A. So it's going to take exactly the same parameters and send that to nap A. If then the call number is this one, 8450655993, then it's going to go to B without remapping anything. And yeah, this one will not be matched ever. Okay. This one is yeah, so it's a direct mapping from in 2 to B or in 1 to A. So that's just a direct routing scheme. Route retry. Okay, so I mentioned it a little bit. We talked with James about that. So by default, it will when you get a call in and you have more than one option for this particular call, it will try them in order of priority and well, in order of priority. Okay, so here I didn't put priority, but so if you don't set the priority there, then you don't know where it's going to take. But if you set the priority, you'll know which one will be taken first. A then is going to try, if A fails, it's going to try B by default. And if it fails, it's going to try C. There's just a little...
What does it consider a fail?
Yeah, exactly.
No response or,
Absolutely. So let me show you something instead of... whoops. Okay. So it depends on what error is received from the destination. Okay, so if you go in the profiles here, so for example, well, not, let's go to the SIP ones, which are at the bottom. If you receive a 487, it will try the next route. Okay, so continue call here. 488, try next call, next route. But if you receive a 486, then it's going to stop. Right? Now these here are configurable. So this is the default, but you can go here in busy and say, well, no, me for busy, I really want to continue to the next route. Okay, so now it's going to continue to the next route. You can reset to default later. Okay, but and what we discussed yesterday is that if we want to never do any route retry, we can just change all of them to stop, right? And then it's not going to do the route retry.
Is there a way to control it wherein the calling, say we have an upstream trunk NAP, and then they start sending multiple invites for the same call?
For the same number?
So inbound.
Inbound?
Inbound from outbound, inbound through the SBC to the
Yeah.
inside NAP. And the outside NAP starts sending multiple invites for the same call because the inside NAP responds with a busy or some other response. Is there a way to have the SBC stop that and kind of control that?
You mean, okay, so we receive a call, we send it here, we receive a busy,
Yeah, and then that guy then sends.
makes another call.
Yeah.
No. No. For the SBC, this is really a totally new call, and it doesn't make the difference between two calls. The only thing it's going to block is if there's too many calls, but then this is configurable when you configure that NAP, right? Or you can have a call rate or something like that. Also, you can limit. No, because I have some systems. It's always the same number, right? So you always receive the same call number, and so we don't distinguish between calls like that.
Okay.
If I remember well, maybe Nicole, you can help me on that. Many calls to the same call number. Maybe we did a routing script for that. You know, we wanted to stop too many calls to the same call number. What was that? Don't you remember? Yeah. Always, yeah, you receive 10 calls to the same call number, and then we stop them. Do you remember that?
At the same time?
Yeah, same or a short period of time or
Yeah, I think we have.
I think we did something on that, but we will need to research. But it was a routing script, and the routing script was doing something, and then
So we check the call trace, I think.
we checked the call trace.
Yeah, we check the call
Yeah,
trace.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
call
yeah.
trace is live, so we check the call
Yeah,
trace.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. Okay.
It's for like within 5 seconds, if more than 10
Yeah.
calls
Yeah.
already, so the 11th one will be reviewed.
So we did do a script for that, and it looks in the call trace because the routing script you have access to the call trace. So you have all the calls there, and 5 seconds maybe or something like that. If you receive more than 5 seconds, so it's possible to do, but they need a special script, and we have it somewhere probably. Because usually, well, the way it works for the routing script is we discuss with the customer, right, what they need, and then we search in our database of routing scripts. So some of them are pre-installed on the SBC, others are on the wiki, but others are just in our files and support, right, that we just recover and put in a specific directory. So if you tell us what you need, then we can search and say, oh, this one looks like what you need. So we send you that one with instructions on how to install it, use it. And if it works for you, then great. If it doesn't, then either you have someone, if you have someone at your location that can modify it. So some software coders will look at that and say, it's easy. But if you cannot, then you can come back to us, and we will charge you some hours to do some special functionalities for you. Okay. It's one main routing script, and then you can, usually what we do is we call it filters, so it's just like functions that you add in the system. It's a one main script, and then you call whatever function. Yes, yes. I'll talk about this, yeah. But it's
one NAP that does not send any response at all. Is it gonna go?
no response at all. So you have another setting in the, it's the gateway that has this setting, and you decide how long you want to wait. Alright, so if there's absolutely no response, I think the default is 20 seconds. 20 seconds, but you can reduce that to 10 seconds, right, if there's no response.
And it will go to the next.
The next one, yeah, without getting anything from the first leg. Let me show you, because I don't know if I come back to that later. Route retry mode. On this system it's 5 seconds, but I don't think it's the default. Maximum time allowed for outgoing leg to be accepted before terminating and trying the next route. And here you can choose when you want to start this timer, or start or stop this timer. Stop, I think. Cancel, yeah, when you want to stop this timer. Okay, so you have to understand a bit how your system works, and then you can decide when you will go to the next route. Okay. And this is a global parameter, unfortunately, so it's only...
It's not part of the profile.
Exactly, it's in the whole system, so it could be restrictive in some situation. Oh, there. So that's what we saw, right? So for the SBC, you will look only at the reason cause, which are over 300. Okay, so the 400s like this, and then you can set the stop, continue, or change them. So the load balancing, then you use the priority and wait parameters here. Oops, I don't have any. Okay, so since here all the routes will always match, because there's only one incoming NAP, and then I have ABC here. When we put the priorities here, so 10 and 10 will be equal priority, and that's, let's say 0 is the highest priority. Right. So it goes a bit reverse, but so if you have two outgoing naps with the same priority, and then it will look at the weight to know how to distribute those calls. Right. So the calls will go in here maybe 50% of the time if you put the same value of weight on both. And this B route here will be used last. Okay. If the two other are down, if they're not available anymore. Okay. If you want to distribute calls amongst the three, then you put the same priority everywhere, the same weight everywhere, and it's going to be equally balanced. Okay. But sometimes there's some servers here that could be more performant, so then you can throw more calls at them. Okay. So here I call it a backup route, or it can be also a default route. If the others don't work, then it's going to go to that one. Well, a default route, you can put any here. If you put any in the NAP, then it's always going to choose that one if nothing else matches. Okay, so just a little overview of the regular expressions. Just a little overview of the regular expression. So regular expressions are made for a lot of things, but here we want it only for digits normally, right? So it simplifies a lot what we want to do. And with all these different elements, you're good to do about any regular expression for this system. All right? So in our configuration, you always need to put the demarcation. So you always have a slash at the beginning, slash at the end. And it's a good practice, or at least I always do it. I always start at the beginning and put the dollar sign at the end to say I want to match always the full number, because otherwise you can match only part of this number. Okay, so usually we start with a caret and a dollar sign. You can put any character, but it's not so interesting. It's more interesting to do something like this, because then you can specify which digits you accept. All right? And this is one digit. All right? So for example, 0, 1, 2, 3 to 9 is one of those digits. This is the same as this, 0 to 9. So any digits here. Or you can say, well, no 0. So 1, 2, 3 to 9 or 1 to 9, then you don't accept the 0. All right? So that's only one digit. If you want to have more than one digit, then you can put a number. Where is it, my number? Here, occurrences. Okay, so you can put something like 5. Means I want 5 digits, any digit. You can say I want to have 1 to 3 digit, or you can say I want to have any number of digits. All right, so then you have all your digit string. Okay. Then there's others which are maybe less important, but can be used. At least one of those. An optional. So sometimes optional 1, right here in Canada, we don't know if it's going to receive the 1 or not. So optional 1. So you can bypass that. You can do one or the other, one number or the other. So it can be just one digit or more than one digit. Not is used sometimes. And then you have the groups here. Right? The groups are used for remapping. So you can choose groups to be able to remap the numbers after. Once you created your regular expression, then you can test it. So we use Perl regular expression. So you can use this tool here called Rubular. And then you can put your regular expression here without the slashes because they're already here. Okay, and then you put some test numbers here and it tells you which one matches. And the groups, right? So if you have the parenthesis, it's going to give you the groups. So if first group here, it's either 450 or 514. Then you see the first group that has matched 450. Second one has matched 514. And then there's 7 digits. It needs to be 7 digits exactly. So then it's going to match the 7 last digits here, 7 last digits there, and the other one will not match. All right? So you can just go in there, put your regular expression, put all the numbers you want to try, and then if it doesn't do what you want, then you can just change the expression. Take it, plug it into the routing table. All right? So I have just some examples that we use often, and I think if you just know these ones, you'll be pretty good for any type of regular expression for the system. All right? So this one is, so you have the front slash for all the expression. Then you have the caret to say start at the beginning, and dollar sign to say go all the way to the end. Then here an optional 1, so 1 and question mark. Then it needs to be followed by 450, and then you need 7 more digits. All right, so only if it matches this, it will go through. This one we just saw, that's the one that is an example of Rubular. So same thing, you have this here at the beginning, this at the end. It can start with 450 or 514, and then any number of digits. It's a star, right? So any number of digits after. So it's actually a match on a prefix. You don't care what is the rest. Okay, here is a plus, and plus, since it's one of the reserved characters, you need to escape it. So you just put a backslash in front of the plus, and then optional plus is the question mark and any of the number of digits. So if you receive a call with or without the plus, it will accept this rule. Okay. And then you have replacements. So that's when you start using parentheses. Okay, here you have two parentheses, so that's the first group, that's the second group. However, in this rule, there's no group matching. So it's just a number. So what will happen is that it's going to replace with this number. So whatever, well, what is incoming needs to be 450 and 7 digits. And what is outgoing will be this number. Here is when we use the groups. Right, so you have here after the regular expression, which is defined here, you have backslash 2. That means we'll use the second group only. Right, so the number must start with 450, then have 7 digits, but the resulting, the outgoing call number will be only the 7 digits without the 450. And then this other example here is similar to this one. So there's two groups. So then we will add 514 or remove the 450, add the 514 and use the 7 digits. So we just replace the prefix. Okay. This one is more complicated. Anybody can figure out this one? Pouvez-vous résoudre cette énigme?
Plus 88. On a peut-être quelque chose qui commence par plus 88 et après qu'il y a autant de 18 qu'on veut. Et on enlève le plus 88.
S'il est là, c'est bon. So plus 88, this is just an escape for the plus, so that's fine. Optional meaning, well, it can be there or not. But anyway, we will replace with only the second part. So if there's a plus 88, we remove it. Un point pour vous? What's this one? Add a prefix. Right? So add a prefix. So you have any number here, and then you put 09667 and all the digits. So that's for sometimes we want to send to other systems which need to have a prefix. Actually, we have. Yeah, Mark asked me to do routing like that, where so we use the digit map file. We use the label routing to find specific numbers which need to route to specific destinations, and then we need to add a prefix like that depending on where it's going. Right? So that's doable with the label routing I will show you. What are these ones? Yeah, so you have other examples here that you can refer to later. Like 1 to 9 means no 0, so it needs to start with 0, 0, but no 0 after. And then there's other examples which are just a bit more complicated, but these are not so necessary usually. All right, so once you've done your routing table, Maybe you tested your regular expressions in the tool, the online tool. You can also test it in the system directly. So you can program your routes and then fake some test calls in the system just to try if it's going to work, if it's going to do what you want, replace the correct number, stuff like that. So in the routing script, it's in the routing script page. Doesn't matter, doesn't have to use the routing scripts, but it's like this. You can define the incoming parameters. So you really simulate what you're receiving from an outgoing system. All right, so a call number, calling number, NAP, maybe other parameters. Here, all these parameters are defined on our routing script tutorial page. Right, so normally these are enough for testing just the routing table because these are the information that are in this table. But if you want to test your routing scripts, maybe you can add more parameters here, things that you receive from the network to be able to figure out if it's doing what you want. This NAP list is created automatically from what is defined in your system, so you don't need to change that. Unless you want to test specific things like say, well, this NAP is not available anymore, so you can put 0 there, and it's going to simulate that this NAP is down, right, to simulate a route retry or something like that. Once you've defined your values here, then you can just do test, and it will give you an output. So for example, okay, so we start here. Right, so this is the first route that will be chosen, and that's the route name. So in the routing table, you have the route name, and this is what will be chosen first. And this will be the outgoing attributes. So maybe the remapped number and the remapped calling number, and where it's going to go. Okay. So here there was no change. Yeah, so there was no regular expression on this particular call. Okay? And then you can change these parameters and test other things. Okay? It's not necessary to do that. If you can put it live on the system and just take real phones, it's as good as this. Okay? So to debug the internal routing, well, one of the ways is, of course, the call trace. That's the best way, because in the call trace, you see the incoming call, you see which route has been selected, what are the numbers that came in, what are the numbers that have been modified to be sent out. Right, so you can see all of this, which route is chosen first, and if that route fails, it goes to the second route, and then you can see that in the call trace. You can also see the same thing in the CDRs. So you see which route was taken, what are the parameters that were taken, but these are in files or in a radius server that I'll show you later. But you can still look at this to get information on what happened. You can see in the NAP status why maybe the call was not routed. Maybe that NAP is down, not available, it's full. If you set a number of maximum channels, then maybe it's full. All right. If you cannot figure it out here, well, you can go in gateway here. Here I put trace level 1 because you see everything, but maybe trace level 3 would be enough for just basic routing. And you will see there if there's any errors that pop out, or if you see some mistakes, you can see that here. Trace level 1, you make sure you see everything, but it creates more logs. If you're just doing some test calls, it's fine. If you have a live system running many calls, then maybe it's a bit too much. Trace level 3 would be better to find what you're looking for. And you can also have the signal in trace, depending on what you're trying to debug here. So that's the basic table. Right? So that's available always in the systems. Just configuration, click, click, click. Right? The thing that I did not say is that you can export the. You can export the table. if you go in the routing table here, you can do at the bottom export static routes. So you can get them all out of here. So here I have only 4, so it's not very much of a problem, but we have customers that have 1,000 routes, so you can export them in a CSV file and you can modify them there. And then when you re-import them here, or you can use this to re-import them. Okay, so here it says no replacement of existing routes take place, right? So when you want to import static routes, you need to delete the old ones first. So you delete the old routes and then you can import them. Here, dynamic routes is for label routing, which we'll see later. So it creates just a file like this, right? Route name, call link, call nap. So you can modify this file instead of modifying in the, especially if you have a lot of things to change, it's useful. Here, and you see I have a lot of custom attributes here. That's why there was a lot of lines in the file. Okay, so then we have the routing scripts. This complements the basic routing. So you can still use the basic routing table with the routing scripts, or you can completely override what happens in those tables. Okay?
Question for you.
Sure.
Can the routing scripts be domain oriented, or is it global?
Domain oriented, sure, yeah. The routing scripts.
Yeah.
Once you're in the routing scripts, you can do whatever you want. Okay? I'm not saying it's necessarily easy, but you can do whatever you want. Right? By default, it's more oriented towards numbers, right? Yeah. But you have the domain information in the routing script, and you can use that. So, however, I don't know if we have many examples that do that. So that may be just a bit another step to think. So you can, in this routing scripts, you can modify any script available parameters. So most of the parameters that you receive from the call are available in the routing scripts. Sometimes some of them are not, okay, but it's rare. And we can go and add them as parameters, usable parameters in the scripts, okay. And then we have a lot of ready-made scripts, either in the SBC itself, so they are there, you can just activate them, add them to your basic script, or we have others, like I said, in our support team that we add, but we don't necessarily push on the SBC because it's maybe too specific. Sometimes we put them on the wiki if we think many customers would like to use that specific script. The way it works internally, this is the standard internal routing. So it does these things. You receive a call. The call comes in always from TB router, TB-SIP, toolpack engine, and then gateway. The routing is all done in gateway. Routing scripts is all done at gateway. So when you want to debug anything that has to do with call routing, usually it's going to be gateway. That's why I say go to gateway level 1 and you'll get information. The incoming call comes in from the system. When you get in gateway, you have information about this incoming call. So you have call parameters, calling, incoming NAP, domain, and there's a list, right? There's a list, I don't know, 100 parameters or something like that that come in to the gateway application. The basic routing, what it does, it matches the route. So it takes the first 3 columns of the table, call, calling, and NAP. We'll try to match what is incoming with these 3 information. If it matches, then it's going to use the 3 other columns, or maybe other custom columns, remap the calling, remap the called, and remap the destination, remap the network access point. Then it's going to send that out to the system. When it sends it out, it has three information. The new call parameters, because maybe they have been modified here in the system. The list of routes, so maybe there's only one, but maybe you can have multiple routes going out of the system. And you have another thing that we can add. It's called bridge parameters. This is to add specific functionality like playing, recording, lawful interception, and other things. Right? So basically, bridge parameters, what it says is, after the call is started, here is information for you. Right? So what else to do? Right? So for example, you want to play a file at the end of the call. So we send that to the system, to Toolpack engine here, which will take this bridge parameter and at the right time in the call flow will play a specific file. Okay. When you want to do some routing scripts, you can modify the behavior. So normally you would keep the route match and route remap. That's the basic routing table. But you don't have to. It's not mandatory. Right? But in general, we keep it. We keep that table. And we can add stuff before matching these three parameters. We can add stuff after matching these parameters. Or we can do it even after everything has been remapped, do something else. All right? So we call it here a before filter. So if you see before filter, it means it happens before matching. It can be an after filter, which happens after matching. An after remap filter, this one we don't use very much. We use only in a few scripts. And you can, after everything is done, you can do some other work. Okay. So I mean, just some of the scripts we have done is only one filter like this. So you don't have these ones. You just add this one to your regular flow and it does something here. Or it could be just an after filter. Or you can add all of these to do different functionalities in the routing. So here I took some of these standard routing scripts that are, let's say, easy to add to the system. One is called black-white listing. So you can just enable that in your system. You add a list of numbers which you will refuse always. You can use the one that's called pre-remap. So with this you can normalize the numbers. So you can do a regex before doing the rest of the regex. Right? So that allows you to normalize a number. Let's say one way that we use this, that we have used this, is just to remove the 1. If there's a 1 at the beginning of the numbers, remove the 1 because we don't need it for routing. So we do that and then the routing table becomes simpler. You don't have to do a regular expression with 1 and a question mark for every single rule. And this is added as a before filter. Okay. Add custom CDR. So we have many customers who've asked this. So they say, well, I'm receiving a call and I want to add information in the CDR. Because on our side, what we do is we put a lot of standard information. But they want to have more. All right. So when we receive a call, we can take here, I think this one is a specific SIP header that we're extracting and we're adding in the CDR. All right, so that's a little script that does that. Yeah, so some instructions to activate the scripts, but I will show you one, which is black-white listing. First, you will go in FileDB. I didn't show the black-white list, but you go in FileDB and you upload Well, it says here import new file, or you can update it later. This CSV file has only a few columns, right? It's call number and blacklist, or white number and whitelist. Okay, so it's only 4 columns. Okay, then once the file is uploaded, you can go in the routing script. Just one thing is, the name here is important because the routing script reads exactly the name, right? We could modify the routing script to be a bit more flexible, but let's say right now it's very specific. It has to be exactly this name, and that's how it's going to be recognized in the database with the routing script. Okay, so you click on routing script, and then you take the main. So that was your question, Dragos. This is the main script. Okay, that's the one that will call all these other scripts to do what you want. Okay. So you select the main script. In that specific script, what you will do is add 3 lines. One is called require, one is called include, and one is called before filter. So here it could be, depending on the script, before filter, or after remap filter. So we will tell you depending on which script it is. And this information here, well, you just copy as it is. So if you look in the main script itself, because it could be a little bit different, because maybe you have other scripts, other filters running in the system. But let's say the basic will look like this. So you'd have always require base routing. So if I just go back here, you see base routing is always there. It's always there, you cannot delete it. So it has some specific functions in there which apply to everybody. And then you put the require black white listing. In the class, the main class here, you will include this black white listing, and then before filter you copy this. Okay. Now these names are all very important, right? So it's software and it has to match exactly, capital, small letters, everything has to be exactly the same. Okay. Once you do that, you just activate the configuration, and now you have black white listing. It's going to go through that list to your CSV file, check all the numbers that are blacklisted, and will refuse them. And this, in this case, black white listing has two options. One is global, so that means that number will be blocked wherever it comes from. But we have another option here in this script where it's NAP, right? So per NAP. So per NAP you can have a different blacklist. Okay. Yeah, so if I just show you briefly one of those scripts.
Is that prioritized in the CSV? Like what NAP the blacklist applies to?
You assign to each NAP which blacklist you want.
Oh, which file?
So you will have a different file per NAP. Different file names in that case as well. The main script, yeah, I'm using a specific script. So it looks like this. Yeah, so there are always comments in the scripts, and then you have require. So may have only one, but I think now we have at least these 4 first ones. Okay, we have at least these 4 first ones, and then there's other comments here, and then you need to include your black-white list after one of these, and then later you have a before filter here. Then you can decide, well, the black-white listing, do I do it before this one or after this one? And it depends on what this is supposed to do. Maybe you want to do it before, maybe you want to do it after. Or maybe you have just one before filter, then it's not a problem. So in this case, we have only one. It will do a query here.
this script accessible to SSH console? Or can you edit it on the...
Well, no, but you can do it with the RESTful API. Yeah, so you can update those files. But it's just, as you can see, this is just a text file, right? Or a .rb file formatted as Ruby. And usually when I do a script, I just take out this file from there, use another editor to do that, and just copy back the information and activate it. It can be done with a RESTful API as well. Push it back into the system.
Is it validated somehow?
Yeah, oh yes. Yes, yes, yes. If you make a mistake, so now I can activate if I just do this. It's going to refuse right away. Right? It's going to verify everything you do. However, it doesn't mean it's going to protect against everything. All right. So if you do a formatting mistake, it's going to be verified. But if you do a algorithm error, then there's no way to fix it. So maybe you need to, well, first it needs to pass this, otherwise you won't be able to activate it.
What's the difference between quick save and save?
Yeah, well, quick save is when you save a lot, it's going to stay on the same page. If I do save, it takes
Okay, goes up.
a few seconds longer. That's just to accelerate. Yeah, so maybe you need to, well, first activate it, see if it's going to work, and then you need to make some test calls. And that's what happens sometimes. We saw that when we did a script a few weeks ago. We did everything, tested, everything's working, then you put it live, and it's working, and then boom, one of them fails. It's like, oh, what happened, right? Because we were expecting to receive a parameter, and we didn't receive it, or it was badly formatted, and that made just the call drop, right? So, oh, okay, look at it, fix the script, reload it, and it's done, okay? When you put the script live, you have to be careful, right? The ones we have implemented, or the basic one, and the ones we have implemented, usually they're pretty well protected. It's still software, so there could be some cases that it fails, but if you put a bad script in the system, maybe all your calls will not pass, because it is critical to call routing. Okay. Did I put the script somewhere? I didn't put it here. I may find it later. But these are the steps for black-white listening. Maybe for others, you don't need to upload a file DB. Maybe you need to add a new custom column in the routing, or a new custom column in the NAPs, right, to allow you to look at this information to allow routing, or to add parameters to what you want to send. Okay. So this, I talked about it already. So before filter, the route match. Okay. So before filter is like a black-white listing like that. Route match, try to find the routes that match. After filter, so after they are matched, maybe you want to modify something. And then remap with the new information in the routing table. And all of these are optional, right? You can bypass all of them. If you bypass all of them, the call will be dropped, because there's going to be no available routes at the end. But it could be, and we'll see that after, it could be just a SIP redirect. So instead of going through these tables, you just do a SIP redirect. Okay. And this, I explained this in coming call parameters. So there's a list in our wiki to know all of them. For example, private SIP headers will come in this parameter. So if you get a x-something SIP header, you can get it in the routing script with this here. So you'll get this parameter as a string, and then you can manipulate it to extract information or choose the routing.
So I haven't done this yet, but I've been confused by what I read there. I thought we had to update your, I think it's like a PAP file, or something like that. For this
PAP?
So I had it open a minute ago, but I thought you had a custom zip headers file. I don't remember the name of it now, but like I thought we had to modify it behind the scenes to add our custom zip headers into the file.
Into the file. You'll need to show this to me. Maybe it's not super well explained what you looked.
Okay.
It's a script file, right? So it is a file, but then you need to do something with those zip headers, right? So maybe you show me what you saw, and because I don't recall exactly.
I'm definitely going to be using it.
Okay.
To,
zip headers.
yeah, custom zip headers.
Okay.
To move calls.
Okay.
Extensively, so I'm
Okay.
definitely interested in making sure I'm going to do that.
Let me just write it here. Maybe I'll show you some. Or maybe, okay, well, I'll check if I can find something for you and show you how it's done. But basically, in zip header, you get X dash column, the information, and then we can just search in there to get what you need and use it after that for routing. And we have some examples for that. So probably not exactly what you want, but could be. This is using Ruby, so you can search on the web, and that's what I do to do stuff, right? So there's, for example, you take your parameter and you put dot to I, right? So convert to integer, or to string, or last, so you get the last information, or you can do a search in your string, right? So it's functions, and you can find them off the web. So it's easy. It's possible to do that. Okay? You need some software experience, which I have a little bit, and it's enough for me to be able to update scripts and do some functionalities. Okay. Okay, so bridge, as I said here, you have additional call for information like announcement tones, ringtones. You can put max call duration also. So this is something that is used sometime in Radius, or it could be also in SIP redirect, but we can receive from this external service saying, well, they have 30 seconds left. So then we put, okay, we can have this call, but 30 seconds maximum. And we put max call duration. The system will automatically shut down the call after 30 seconds. And if you have the possibility to do announcements, then we can do an announcement saying you're out of credits or something like that.
With the ringtone there, where's that stored? With the file?
The transcoding route.
It is stored on the SBC. You need to preload it in the system. And you need to have transcoding to be able to play the tones. But once, while waiting, so here instead of, it's going to override the default ringback tone and use this file that you have chosen.
But the transcoder is required.
Yeah, yeah. One of the first big systems we deployed was in China, and they were doing ringback tone, personalized ringback tone for all their customers, right? So you could just configure what you want for each of the callers, and it would do that automatically. Not with the SBC, with the old media gateways. So, but here it never took off, right? It's personalized ring back never took off here. China, it was big. Okay, then we have, we have, like I said, many routing script examples, but we have one here that is being used a lot, which is called, sometimes it's called label routing, sometimes it's called route set routing. So if you look in the documentation, sometimes it's not, it is two different words for the same thing. So what we want to do with this is be able to route a call on any number. All right, so you receive a number, you look in your list, and you route the call according to that. And these numbers, why there's millions of numbers, is that they are not, it's not possible to do a regex on these numbers. Each of them are individual, and 111 can go to one destination, and 112 to another, 113 to another, so it's always different, so there's no way to do a regular expression on that. So what we do is we take those numbers, right, and we assign for groups of numbers, we assign a label. Right, so we assign a label to that. Then in the naps here, we say, well, this nap can serve this label or this label or this label. All right. So then you can do groups of numbers in your file to allow routing anywhere in all of your naps in the system. Okay.
You have to have a routing table for each nap, or
You need to have naps for every possible destination in the system, but that's it. Okay.
you can run everything off of a single CSV file.
Yes, yes. Well, it's actually it's two CSV files. One for the digit map that chooses which labels can be used, and then you have per nap one information that says which label it can route. All right. So at least two files, but it can be more than that. And it's a longest match. So you can, if it's possible to do longest match, then maybe it's going to reduce a lot of numbers in your file. And we tested up to 5 million numbers in the system. Probably it can go to more than that, but it's still pretty big. And it's set as a before filter in the system. So
That's always on the outbound.
pardon?
It's always on the outbound.
It is always on the outbound.
Yeah, if we go back for the call number. So
Ask your question again.
On the call number.
Yes.
This is the calling number.
Well, you have the choice.
Okay.
It's either called or calling.
Oh, okay, that's what
Yeah.
I'm confused there. It's find longest match entry for the call number. Okay.
Yes. Yes. It can be the calling. We've used it a few times with the
Okay,
calling.
so you can use it
Yeah.
for the calling number.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any penalty on the performance if you have like large routing
The
maintenance?
the way it's done, it's the table is hashed in the system. Right. So when you load up the first time, you need to do generate something, and then it will, thank you, generate route set, and then it will hash all of those. So once you get the number in, it's super fast to find, so very little impact. There could be just a bit more impact if you have a lot of naps, because then there's more checking to do. But if there's a lot of numbers, it doesn't affect. It takes a bit longer though. If you have 5 million digit map, when you do generate, that takes a bit more time, but you have to do it only once, right? It's not for every call that comes in. And so here is an example, a simplified example, of course, digit map file. So it's just a CSV file with three parameters: called, calling, label. So like we said here, we usually customers use called, but I've seen some of them use calling. Okay, and then you have all these numbers that are all of them are different, right? And they say these ones, well, I regroup as a label bsoft, for example, and these ones are I put in label one ring. Okay, so this usually is only one digit map file for the whole system, and you have all your labels here, and then you need to say, for each of the naps that you have in the system, which of these labels they can route. So now we have just one example. So I say the first nap can route any bsoft label. It can route also any quest label or MVTS. Right, so anything that is bsoft, quest, or MVTS, he will be able to route them. And it will add some other information, for example, priority, right? Because maybe you have two naps that can route bsoft. So then you will say, well, this one is 10 and the other one is 100, less important. Okay, so I want to route with this nap. So you have the priority here. So you can set them here. And you can also choose a remap number, regular expression on the call number, or it could be the calling. Right? And then this will happen if this route is chosen, it will do this regular expression. Maybe the other nap, which can also route bsoft at priority 100, maybe has another remap called. So it changes. Maybe it adds a prefix, another prefix, or it removes, here it removes 3 digits, but you could remove 2 digits, or you can do another regular expression on that one. So how to install that in the system? Well, with the web portal, you do FileDB here, and you can put your files. So in the FileDB, we've defined this because we know it would be used a lot. So you have the digit map file. Usually, like I said, you have only one. So you can import it in the system. And then for each of the naps, you will have a different definition. With different labels inside and different priorities. And then for a specific nap, you will specify which digit map file you want to use and which definition file you want to use. So you need to do this for each of the nap in the system if they're using label routing, because you can still have your static routing table running other calls. And the only other thing you need to do before you activate is to generate here, which will hash the information with the digit map and the definition files, so that real time it's fast.
If you update the route set digit map file, do you have to regenerate?
I'm trying to remember one of the two you need to generate, and one of the two you don't need to regenerate. And I think it's this one you don't need to regenerate. We would need to confirm. The digit map file, I think you need to regenerate it. But the definition file, you can just add them and it's going to be okay. So the hashing is done in the digit map file. So. Oh, it's just that, let me find it. You just have the button in the route sets here. Yeah, generate here. Alright, so here for each one of those naps, you will need to choose one route set definition file and one digit map file. And then once they're all selected, then you just need to do generate here.
Oh, okay. So it is the naps files that you have to regenerate, not the digit map.
I'm almost certain it's when you update the digit map, but we could verify that.
That makes the most sense to me, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the question is why is the generate here? I think we don't know where to put it, right? It has to be somewhere, and probably the best place is here. But if you add a new digit map file in file DB, I think you need to do generate here.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I bring it up just because of our conversation. So.
Yes, exactly.
So the labels are not specific to the nap names, you can make them whatever you want.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Find that in the digit, in the definition file.
You can. It's a virtual label, right? So you can do whatever you want there. But I've seen a lot of times do something like this. Right? The definition is for napsip, and you put napsip here, and the name of the thing here is napsip, for example. Right? So I've seen that as well. It's like the simplest format of this scheme. Okay. Oh, I put some animation here. Okay. Okay, let's continue with that. Radius routing scripts. So you can use an external radius engine to accept call and choose the route. So instead of having the SBC here decide what to do with the call, we can bypass completely the routing table, bypass the label routing, any routing script we have done, and just do a routing script to send to the radius server. Okay? So two things we do. First, we fill the incoming call parameters that we want to send to the radius server. Then the radius server will return a response, accept the call or reject the call. Then it can give us all kinds of things. And that has to be decided between us and the radius server. Maybe it's going to give us a list of routes to make calls to. Maybe they're going to give us a modified call number, modified calling number. And maybe it's going to tell us, well, this call can go on for 2 minutes. Right? So these are all things we can use then to make our outgoing calls here. The first is the radius server configuration. So we just need to say this radius server is an authorization radius server, and this is where it is. All right, so you can have one or more radius servers, and I have other information when we talk about CDR on that. And then you have a sort of a password that you exchange between you and the radius server. And the other mode is accounting. That's for your call detail records if you're using radius for the CDRs. Alright, so, and that's the only thing you need to do in the configuration is to add this radius server, make it available. Then in the routing scripts, you will first fill the call attributes. Okay, these call attributes look like this. So, calling station ID, for example, call station ID. We will see this again in the CDR presentation. So first you fill the information that you send to the radius server. Then you can reply on one of those. So either it's going to tell you that this call is accepted, and it has maybe a routing information or other information. It can return you rejected, so then we can just drop the call. Or maybe the radius server will not answer, so then we can also either use then our static routing table or just drop the call.
Can you have a list of radius servers, so if one of them doesn't answer, the other goes to the next one, and so on and so forth?
Yeah. Yeah, I will show you after. When we exchange information between the SBC and the radius server, we need to use dictionaries. Alright, so these dictionaries have specific information and a value. Okay, and that's the type of the attribute. So this is called generic route 1. So it's possible to see this in Wireshark, right? This name here, generic route 1, and the value 11. And these attributes are understood by both the SBC and the radius server. So you can fill those attributes either going to the radius or coming back. These dictionaries need to be uploaded in the SBC. So for example, a dictionary like this, radius dictionary. Some of them are already integrated. So we have Cisco dictionaries that are already integrated in the system. And this same dictionary can be added in Wireshark. I have put in, when I'll give you the presentation, I'll give you also the instructions on how to do that. So you can load the dictionary inside Wireshark so it can decode these attributes that are being used back and forth. Okay. So we have some examples. We have Jerasoft that we worked with them before to do radius integration. So we know what to send them and they know what to send to the SBC to make it work. There's another one that's called Alarius. There's another one that's called Adenis. Adenis has done some integration with us also on the radius. So you can use this if it's the same radius servers, but if it's other radius servers, maybe we need to do some modifications in the routing scripts. Okay. So the radius routing you will see in the call trace if we send information to the authorization system. In the call detail records, we will see also if the call was accepted, which routes were taken. The NAP status here will also give us information if these networks were chosen for outgoing calls. You can take a radius capture. Here it should say, depending on which interface it goes out. So when you choose your radius server, you will choose from which interface you want to send it. And there's different ways to get the information. If it's going through the management interface, which is possible, then you need to do a TCP dump on the server to get the information. If it's going through a LAN 1 interface, then you need to do, here it says VoIP, but it's actually a TB router capture that you need to use. Okay. And this should be done, this should have been set for all the routing scripts. So in the routing scripts, when you design a routing script, you can add traces. So you say, for example, log trace, and this will show in the gateway logs. So at certain time in your routing script, if you get to a certain place, you say, I want to know what's in this variable. You can say log trace, show me this variable. It's inspect in Ruby. And then you say the level of the tracing, and it's going to show in gateway logs. All right? So if you say, I want to show this information at log trace level 2, if you run gateway, you put it at trace level 2, you'll see those logs. So it's really useful for debugging. It's useful for radius also information. Okay? I'll show you that after. Okay. I just have one more thing to show in this presentation: a SIP redirect routing. All right, so it's similar to what we see in radius, except instead of sending a radius call, it's really a SIP call. So we use an external SIP server either to choose a route or to get other information. there's different ways to do this, but it could be just a default route to a redirect server, or we get forced to send to the redirect server. And then once the information is sent, you will receive a response from the SIP redirect server. It's in the form of 300 response. Again, they can accept or reject the call. So they could send, instead of 3XX, they could send a 503 or a 603 to refuse a call. The default mode is to have a list of SIP contacts, which we will use to try to call outside network. However, it could be more advanced than that, and the list of SIP contacts could have a new calling number, new call number, trunk group information, and so you can customize what you receive from the SIP redirect server. So we have a default routing script for that, but maybe it doesn't apply to all the situations, because sometimes if it's customized information we receive here, we need to modify the script a little bit. So the redirect call flow, the simplified redirect call flow is something like this. So you send invite to the SIP redirect server, and you get a 302 or something else, depending on which SIP redirect server. And then the contacts like this, and we'll use just regular redirect information. If the call is accepted, we'll use only one of the contacts. If the call is refused, well, we use the second contact as well. Okay, so basically what you need to do is enable the script for SIP redirect. Make sure that SIP redirect server is defined as a NAP, okay, a reachable NAP. And then the rest will be done automatically if you're using the standard redirect. Okay, so here these instructions are on the wiki, how to enable this. So it tells you do this, do that, and it will work. You just need to have the SIP redirect server available. Okay. And we have partners who offer SIP redirect servers. Okay. Or some customers have their own routing engine implemented in a SIP redirect server, so we can use that. So that's what we said. So we just need to enable the redirect routing script. And in the profiles, well, now it's always like that. So 300s are process call routing. That means when we receive a 300, it's going to go back in the routing script and then implement what you have selected. Okay. Yeah, so when you install the script for SIP redirect, you follow the instructions on the wiki, but one of the things you have to do is add a NAP column. Alright, so when you click on NAP columns here, you have all the NAPs that you have in your system, and you have predefined columns, which is additional information you want to give to that network access point. So for example, we saw earlier on the digit map and the definition. It will show up here if you're using that. Which digit map is assigned to this NAP and which definition. Call pre-remap, we talked about this as well. So you can do a regular expression if you receive a call on a specific network. So then you can, you need to have this script enabled, of course, but you just put a regular expression there and you're going to modify the number that you receive. And then you have, specifically for SIP redirect, you can have a server type, which is called redirect. So you will have a NAP that you have created to the redirect server. And then if it finds that it's a redirect server and your script is enabled for that, it will send the SIP call to this NAP initially and wait for a 300 response. Okay, here it's very similar how to debug the redirect routing, except that now you will use a SIP capture and not a radius capture to get information that is sent. So that can be TB-sig trace or a TB router capture. Okay, so it's just an overview of these, of what can be done as, let's say, more standard. but then it's open to doing a lot of other things. That's why we have so many scripts to do all kinds of different functionalities. All right.
Congratulations, you have passed the halfway point. By now you should know all there is to know how to install, configure, naps, SIP stacks, set up routes. Time to move on to module 210 in billing interfaces by clicking in the box over here.